Moving to a new country is a huge leap of faith. Olga, you did just that when you moved to Canada from Mexico in 2014. Could you share a bit about your experience as a newcomer and how you navigated these early career challenges?
Yeah, I moved in 2014, and I would have to say that I was very lucky because I didn't have to wait for too long to become a permanent resident here. My entrance into Canada was through a sponsorship from my husband, so that was kind of an easier. I have to acknowledge that some other folks that may need to apply and wait for years, or even they are in the country and they also have to wait for years with a work permit until they have an opportunity to become a permanent resident. So as soon as I landed here, did have several opportunities in the form of services, so language services, settlement services. I do remember one of the first things when I arrived in the airport, there was someone just giving brochures about these kind of settlement services. I never heard about them. I was actually quite surprised and impressed, and I was wondering, like, wait a minute, are these like free, or do I have to pay, or how does it work? But I started navigating those services, and I was really, again, surprised that there was all these supports already in place to settle here, to adapt quickly. So that was, and also was during this, this honeymoon phase when you land in Canada. So that actually really helped. It was a little bit later when I start facing the reality. Okay, so I came here. I do have a PhD. My expectation was going to go into academia again, but that didn't happen. And it took me good 2 years or so of just trying to apply for jobs in the biotech industry, trying to find an opportunity maybe at one of the colleges or universities here, and not hearing back. Or even if I heard back and had an interview, there was no good outcome for me, the outcome at least that I was expecting. And then it's when I decided to just, change completely my path between science that I have been doing from my master's and my PhD to something completely different.
Absolutely. It can be very overwhelming when you have a PhD from abroad and now you start in Canada from scratch. Have you had any mental health difficulties or stress in this process? And how did you overcome it?
Yeah, so I don't know if necessarily mental health. There was definitely struggles because I think my identity was linked to this idea of doing research, of being a scientist, and I love science. So that was, I believe, what it took the most. And it was all this kind of trying to reconcile with the idea, okay, I'm not that person anymore. I'm not doing that. And then what am I doing? Who am I? So it was kind of a little bit of identity crisis, if you want to call it like that, and try to figure it out what was going to be next and how could I use my skills the best way possible. Nowadays I'm actually working in a nonprofit. And when I started, I thought it was going to be just a stepping stone to gain Canadian experience, and then I was going to move to something else. But that was not reality. I'm still working in the same nonprofit, and I'm actually really happy with that. What I would say in terms of mental health, it was just more trying to picture and try to be as realistic while at the same time as optimistic as possible. It helped to be surrounded with community. I was doing a lot of networking when I was looking for jobs, and a lot of people were on the same shoes as I was, so that helped. I was also doing some meditation, particularly then when COVID-19 hit. I took more on respiration techniques and that kind of thing. And since I was in Mexico, I was doing also some kind of yoga and some physical activity. That is another outlet that helps me to charge with serotonins, and then I'm okay. That is I know that different people have different approaches. For some it's just going for a run, but for me it's definitely move my body helps me boost my mood.
Thank you so much for sharing. And it's very important to not just sit in your apartment and just like feel yourself miserable, just it's very important to try different things, new things, to help yourself be around people. Like, even if you're not comfortable to be between people sometimes on the beginning, and changing career, it's overwhelming and it's difficult mentally. It's a lot of stress. And thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure that it will help people. And in this podcast, we're sharing different things what help us personally and help different professionals to overcome those challenges. Because when people just arrive to Canada, they sometimes they have honeymoon, sometimes they have stress from the beginning, and they feel that they are alone in all that. And it's very important when we share that we had same challenges.
Yeah, it really helped when you also surround yourself with other folks that are just trying to figure it out just as you are. I also took on volunteering just because I was hearing so much about, like, you can gain Canadian experience and you can gain connections. Even along the road, you may get some references if you're going to apply for jobs. And yeah, all of that was actually true. I volunteered for several years for an organization that is for women. It's the Society for Canadian Women in Science and Technology. And it gave me two things. So it gave me this community that I was talking about, because there were other like-minded women trying to navigate the same challenges as I were, and the opportunity to work and collaborate with these ladies. So that was actually really good. It helped. And it helped also when I was applying for jobs, because it turned out that the person who hired me, she thought she has connection. So those are on top of my skills, of course, but it was like, also she has been around town, so she may have more connections and she may bring some extras to the role. So that really helped, just to be surrounded with community. And it doesn't have to be a professional organization. It could be, like a sports community, or religious, or if you go hiking. So it just, as you said, it matters to put yourself out there and surrounded with people, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
That's amazing. Thank you very much. And I have another question for you. So you worked in science, program coordination, and now in curriculum development. And as someone who's been on both sides of the hiring process, what advice would you give to job seekers when they're applying for jobs, especially those looking to transition into a new career?
Yeah. I know that probably if they have been listening to your podcast and they have been in the job search process for long, they have heard this very often. It's to really study and to really get deep in the company that they're applying. So as a hiring manager, like to see someone who took the time to understand what am I looking for. And it goes beyond the job description. So it goes beyond the job description, because if they mention something that resonates with the culture of the company, with the kind of profile that I have, I'm looking for, and that can be tough because it may not be in the job posting, right? The job posting is generic for the same role, but within the organization, depending on the program, I may be looking for a different profile. If you're working with youth, if you're working with women, if you're working in a particular sector, the kind of skills that the hiring manager may be looking for are going to be slightly different. So if you can really speak to the hiring manager to identify what they are looking for and bring that to the interview and present it in your resume and cover letter, also in your marketing materials, that's I would say the key, at least for me. And the other one too is just to be careful with AI, because I had had a lot of rounds of hiring. I could tell in the last one that I had, it's very noticeable when someone is using AI, because they are asking every single bullet point in the job description. There is nothing missing. And it's like, okay, that's good, but is it real? So it gets me wondering, is it real? I want to talk with a person. I want to see your personality in all your marketing materials, on your resume, on your cover letter, in your interview. I want to see the true you, not what an AI may suggest that it would be, just to answer every single thing on the job description. So yeah, that's what I will really encourage people, just to go beyond, really study what is not only the company, but also what this particular team may be looking for, and to be genuine, completely genuine. Even if you get this help from AI, go back, review it, change it. If it thinks like it doesn't sound like you, then don't use that.
Yeah.
Use your own voice.
Thank you so much for talking about this topic. It's very important. I always tell my clients that yes, you can use AI to have more understanding how to write the resume, to have a draft, but it have to sound like you and it have to be about you, because not every single point in job description it's about us. Some skills we need to gain them, maybe we need to learn something new, or we need some specific trainings, but I will make us a perfect candidate, but on the interview it's gonna be a failure. And many people are having rejections because resume is perfect, cover letter is perfect, and every single point from the job description is there. But when they speak with the person, they understand that it's not that skills or it's not that mindset that are on the paper. And unfortunately, people are getting overwhelmed and have stress because of that, because they think, why I had rejection on the interview. So you have to bring more personality to your resume, and it really have to sounds like you. And I've
Yeah.
an employer myself before Canada, and I've been hiring people. For me, the main point was always, if the person is really cares about my business, my company, if they want to do something good for this business, does they really care and have the same values and the same purpose, mission, and the same vision of how it have to be. And for me, it was a big no all the time when people didn't care, when they wasn't passionate about what they would do. So it's not always related to the entry-level jobs when we just arrive to the new country, but at least you have to care about the place where you will work. And it will be obvious for the hiring manager on the interview, do you care about the company or not? And thank you so much for pointing that out about going above and beyond and read between the lines and job descriptions. And speaking of value, AI is playing a bigger role in how companies evaluate candidates these days. And how have you seen AI influence the hiring process, and what should job seekers be aware of?
Well, I haven't seen it too much from the point of view of the employers. We work with employers, and usually we ask if they rely on these tracking systems. Some of them do, the big ones, but not all of them. So actually there is someone reading the job description, human, that's what I would say. I have seen it more from the perspective of the job seekers. And it's already what we have been mentioning is more like, be cautious. It's a cautionary tale of not relying too much on AI, not only for writing your marketing materials, but even I would say when you're practicing for an interview. It's great because it will help you to perhaps improve your pronunciation. But at the same time, I think the cautious thing here is, if we drive oral decisions to align with what AI is telling us, we are going to be the shadow of AI, and it shouldn't be like that. So AI should be to our service, not the other way around. Again, I still need to see the personality behind the application, and that also speaks about the interview. If you are someone who speaks with your hands, well, embrace that. I know that there is cautionary tales also around, like, well, you have to contain a little bit yourself, and some tips about like smiling or not smiling too much, make eye contact. AI can help you to improve that a little bit, but it's just a little boost. Don't rely too much, again, on what the suggestion may be, because you cannot navigate what happens if you are actually hired. You are not going to be like that. So your true self is going to show up at some point, and it can be then a shock, right, for the employer, that they were presented one one you had some kind of first impression, and then down the road it was something completely different. That can be hurtful for your career. That can be hurtful for you to stay in that job, because the employer may feel that there was not accurate. There was something myth.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing this. And I hope that people who will hear that, they will implement this advice in their job search process. And do you have any final advice for our listeners today?
This is most for newcomers, just me being a newcomer. Don't be afraid to share your skills and to bring your own way of doing things. I think there is a lot of emphasis on fitting, on adapting, but I would say too that as newcomer and having a different perspective, a different way of work, that is also an advantage. That is something that your employer may also learn from you. That is completely a strength. So don't be afraid of again, be genuine and try and bring your true self to work. If the employer necessarily doesn't value that, then maybe it's not the right place for you. And we also have to try to create these safe spaces for everyone. So no matter where you are, if you also see that someone else has a different approach, try to learn about that. Okay, what is the advantage of doing this in a different way? What is the advantage of communicating this in a different manner? So that's the beauty of this country that is multicultural. So don't be afraid to bring your skills to the table, and with your own style and with your own with the values that you have.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Work Life Compass would love to invite you again for the next episode. And for our listeners, if you do have any questions for Olga, please send them to info@worklifecompass.ca, and we will invite Olga again and we'll ask her these questions. And thank you so much, Olga, for sharing your journey and those incredibly valuable tips. It's clear that navigating a career change, especially as a newcomer to a country, can be challenging, but also deeply rewarding. And for those of you listening, remember that every career journey is unique, and it's okay to take things one step at a time. The key is to stay resilient, adapt, and never be afraid to ask for help along the way. So thank you very much again.
Thank you, Maria, for having me. And yes, I will be looking forward for a next opportunity.
Thank you very much. And if you found today's episode helpful, be sure to subscribe to Work Life Compass and feel free to connect with Olga on LinkedIn. Her link is on the description. And until next time, I'm Maria Al-Said, and you've been listening to the Work Life Compass, your guide to navigating work, life, and everything in between. Stay strong, stay positive, and keep moving forward.